Welcome to USA News Channel. Please like and subscribe for the first get new video update from us. Thank you.
Experts in the US are still running analysis on a missile test the North carried out in late November. But that hasn't stopped the defense chief from hosing down claims that Pyongyang subsequently made about the launch. Leaders in Pyongyang described the launch of the new intercontinental ballistic missile, the Hwasong-15, as a success. They said it proved that they can now deliver a heavy nuclear warhead to anywhere on the US mainland. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis rejected the claim. He said the North has yet to show that it's a credible threat to the US. US government sources have told NHK that the North hasn't shown that it can get an ICBM warhead to survive re-entry into the atmosphere. A US research group says the Hwasong-15 may be able to reach the US mainland, but would experience problems on re-entry.
North Korea vowing to beef up their nuclear arsenal as nations around the world warn them it's time to stop. Dictator Kim Jong-un telling scientists he wants to increase the quality and number of deadly weapons. But Secretary of State Rex Tillerson says now is the time for diplomacy.
We're ready to talk anytime North Korea would like to talk. And we're ready to have the first meeting without precondition. It's not realistic to say we're only going to talk if you come to the table ready to give up your program. They have too much invested in it.
Last month, North Korea launched its most advanced missile yet, potentially capable of striking anywhere in the U.S.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he's still waiting to see what happens on North Korea. He was trying to avoid giving an immediate response to a question on whether he supports unconditional dialogue with Pyongyang. President Trump said he's hoping for a breakthrough and that the U.S. has a lot of support from other nations on its North Korea policy. His remarks come a few days after Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said the U.S. is willing to hold talks with the North without preconditions. President Trump also said he asked Russia for more help resolving the North Korean issue during his recent phone call with President Vladimir Putin.
The UN Secretary General has said he is deeply concerned by the risk of military conflict on the Korean Peninsula resulting from an unintended escalation or miscalculation and has called on North Korea to reopen channels of communication. Speaking at a Security Council meeting in New York on Friday, Antonio Guterres criticized the regime's continued development of nuclear weapons and missiles this year. But he said dialogue was essential to lower risk and reduce tensions, as military action would have been devastating and unpredictable consequences. He also offered the UN as an impartial intermediary in this endeavour. The Secretary-General's remarks echo the words of Under-Secretary Jeffrey Feltman, who earlier this month was the first senior UN official to visit the regime in 6 years. He described an urgent need to reopen communication, but also said Pyongyang is unlikely to open talks until it has a full nuclear deterrent capabilities.
5,000 armed security will be deployed to the February Games.
Please keep in mind that accidents always happen when no one has expected.
This as South Korea is reportedly asking the U.S. to delay joint military exercises until all the Winter Games are over. Pyongyang sees the exercises as rehearsals for war.
If it doesn't have a major impact on the readiness of U.S. and South Korean forces to defend South Korea, then I think that it's fine.
There were, in fact, more drills this week by the U.S. and allies in the waters off the Korean Peninsula. And Kim Jong-un was cheering on his side, meeting with officials and scientists behind the recent launch of an ICBM capable of targeting the U.S. In speeches today, Secretary of State Tillerson said diplomacy is still possible, just...
As I've told people many times, I will continue our diplomatic efforts until the first bomb drops.
Amid a footnote from another era of U.S.-North Korea tensions. 77-year-old Charles Robert Jenkins has died. As a U.S. soldier in 1965, he defected to North Korea and was used for the North propaganda. He'd later marry a Japanese abductee and return to her home in 2004, where the U.S. gave him a token sentence for desertion. In those remarks today, Secretary Tillerson went on to say the military planners have a range of contingencies regarding North Korea, and they are ready. Brett.
Greg Palcott, live in London. Greg, thanks. Hi, Molly. Well, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson told the UN Security Council yesterday that the U.S. would not sit down with North Korea until the regime changed their threatening behavior first. It was a reclarification about America's approach to North Korea after a week of mixed messages from the Trump administration. The administration has said that they would only negotiate with North Korea under the precondition that the regime agrees to end their nuclear program. But earlier this week, Tillerson signaled a change, saying the U.S. was open to talk to the regime right away, citing that it was unrealistic to expect North Korea to give up its nukes first before negotiations. Now, the White House distanced themselves from Tillerson's comments, and on Friday, Tillerson reiterated that the U.S. has not changed its approach. The week's confusion fueled speculation the president and his top diplomat are at odds. And yesterday, Tillerson said he's on the same page as his boss.
The president's policy on North Korea is quite clear, and there's no daylight at all between the president's policy and the pursuit of that policy. And the president, I think, has been very clear that we're going to lead this pressure campaign. We're going to unite the international community, and we're going to keep the pressure as much as we can and increase it where possible.
Right, so the Secretary of State urging the world to continue pressuring and sanctioning North Korea in the hopes that it will cripple their economy, leaving them no choice but to come to the negotiating table. This, as there is some concern that Kim Jong-un may be planning another missile launch to mark the 6-year anniversary of his father's death, the late Kim Jong-il. Now, last month, North Korea tested a new type of intercontinental missile capable of reaching the U.S., Molly. U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis said Friday he does not believe that this new ICBM is a capable threat against the U.S. right now. So that also is a new development.
Great report. Once again, we hear Tillerson clarifying that he is on the same page as his boss. We will see how things go going forward. Brian, thank you.
Yep.
North Korean media are calling for people to unite under leader Kim Jong-un on the 6th anniversary of his father's death. Large crowds have been offering flowers at a statue of Kim Jong-il in Pyongyang. State-run Korean Central Television has been broadcasting footage of the late Kim. He died of a heart attack while traveling by train to an area outside Pyongyang. The newspaper of the ruling Korean Workers' Party ran a front-page editorial praising the progress of the country's nuclear and missile programs. It called nuclear weapons a sacred sword that had smashed imperialism. The editorial also said North Korea will be unbeatable as long as it can defend itself. The paper said that the country will not give in to international pressure and called for unity under Kim. It said the country is moving forward despite sanctions imposed by the U.S. and its followers.
Bill, yes, the United States has sent messages of support to South Korea during this very difficult and potentially quite tense time. Kim Jong-il died a couple days ago, Bill, but his passing was only announced in the middle of the night last night. They say that he suffered from great physical and mental strain and died on a train during a field guidance tour. He basically just had a heart attack. He'd been unwell for some time, apparently having suffered from a stroke a couple of years ago. As you've seen, there are these intense scenes of mourning. Now, a lot of North Korea experts have questioned how genuine that outpouring of emotion really is and to what extent people feel that they need to behave this way on the streets. There is a period of national mourning in place in North Korea now until December 29th. The burial for Kim Jong-il will be on December 28th. The understanding that we have is that his son, Kim Jong-un, his youngest son, who is 20-something and with very little experience, will be taking over. He was recently anointed as the heir apparent, and now we'll just have to see how he is accepted by the military and the security apparatus, Bill.
Frankly, there is so much we do not know about his son. What impact does the father's death have? How do we measure that now, Amy?
Right. Well, Bill, I think the biggest concern that people have is that Kim Jong-un, this apparent successor, may feel he has to prove his mettle in this period, not wanting to show any weakness. This test firing of a missile, though, it needs to be said, has been dismissed by both South Korean officials and U.S. officials as being a routine exercise and not having anything to do with the passing of the North Korean leader. But it is a period now of uncertainty. Some have said the next 24 to 48 hours will be very important in terms of seeing what develops. Nuclear talks, of course, had started to look like they might get back on track over the summer. It's not clear how this will set that process back. The six-nation talks, which had been very key in trying to get North Korea to stand down from its nuclear program, had stopped 3 years ago.